I am a classics student, and I have a personal interest in history in general. So, I've studied a war or two over the years. Studying war from the perspective of a history student, from a textbook, it kind of sucks sometimes. I wanted to dedicate this video to war fighting, but the problem of historical sources has proven big enough that I needed to dedicate this video instead to do it. I'll do another video on war later. Now, it sucks because many of the academic works surrounding a war in the past are written by sweaty nerds who, well, they're basically me, and our skill is basically reading books real good. It can be pretty painful to read sometimes because the image I get from academics of war in the past is a mixture of big man history and really basic cause and effect.
Herder, Caesar's super cool, uber military genius, cause he conquered Gaul and shit.
And after that, they'll just tell you when battles happen, basic tactics used, and repeat.
Which, if you know anything about how wars are fought, you know that the tactical level is only one of several levels in the overall conducting of war.
It sounds like I'm exaggerating, and I mean, to be honest, I am, absolutely. But I want you to learn from my mistakes, so I'm really trying to drive the stupidity home. And that mistake is believing that your superiors are always right, or at least as right as somebody could be. Believing that just because some fancy pants professor said something in the way that they said something means that's the cutting edge on the matter. No, cut that shit out. Absolutely not. Academics are there because they're school nerds, not because they're experienced folk who have now decided to immortalize their wisdom. It took me way too long to just tell myself that, hold on, Connor, aren't wars a whole lot more complicated than the battles fought and the generals who won them? Connor, don't you think it's strange that all this information that's necessary for having a complete understanding of a war doesn't ever seem to be taught ever? What I would tell myself a lot is, oh, they'll teach it to me when I'm farther along, when I'm more advanced. Well, I'm about to graduate from university. I am advanced now. I have done my own research. I have done my own projects. And you know what? I still find everything lacking. Now, the reason is not entirely the fault of the sweaty nerd. At least not when it comes to classics. The fact of the matter is, historical writers on X war were exponentially more shit than modern writers. For what does this sweaty nerd know? It is the nature of this creature to derive fact from book. And those books were written by a nerd before him. And so the cycle continues. Now, one thing the nerd is good at, generally, is his accuracy. Because if he is not, then he will be laughed at by other nerds. Such is the tradition of peer review. And so, further back in time the nerd cycle goes, the less likely it is that a nerd wrote the book. And those, at the end of the line, at the end of the cycle, those are our historical writers. Held so highly, in such high regard, because of the irrational belief that
people were better in the past.
The fact of the matter is, what authors survive to today is wholly and entirely random. Societies of the past generally were not meritocratic and had no peer review systems. Who knows what degenerates were allowed to write their little degenerate telling of history? I mean, would you be interested in reading random Twitter blue check marks telling of Roman history? Perhaps BuzzFeed's The Egyptica. Just because someone came before you doesn't make them better than you. Even a bachelor's student could run laps around a number of the historical writers. Don't accept things at face value, and most importantly,
Learn from my mistakes, please.